Alright guys, this is going to be a quick rundown on how to combine meshes inside of Unity and a brief rundown of compressing textures while maintaining their alpha transparency. This does assume general competencies, so I'll be moving fairly quickly, but let's just get right into it. Um, so we're going to want to create an empty game object. Everything that you want to combine into a single mesh needs to be under or parented to this empty game object. In my case, I'm just going to create some cubes, so I'm going to name it cube. And I'm going to go ahead and make some cubes as examples of whatever game objects you may be trying to parent. So now I have 5 cubes. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and move these so we can see them here. For this example, I'm going to be assuming a lot of your objects do have different materials or textures assigned to them. So I'm going to do the same to mine. However, this will be pretty much the same if you have a single atlas material or just one material in general. So I'm going to go ahead and add some different materials here that I created. We now have 5 materials, and this is just a standard shader that I'm using for an example here. Wonderful. Look at those. We got some beautiful cubes. So before we get too far into this, we're going to want to go ahead and create a duplicate of this. This is just so we have a backup of this in case anything goes wrong. You can always quickly recover it. That allows you to test whatever you're doing beforehand, make sure it all functions correct, and then you can delete that out of your scene. So just as good rule of thumb, always good to have that. Now let's go ahead and start combining these because we want to combine these all to a single mesh. We're going to need a free asset on the asset store called Mesh Combiner. It's quite nice because it allows you to combine multiple materials into a single mesh. Most of them require a single material, so this is quite nice. Go ahead and download and import that. Once it's downloaded and imported, excuse me, you'll want to go ahead and click on the empty game object that you created and go ahead and add the Mesh Combiner script. Just search for Mesh Combiner, bam, add that in. It adds the mesh renderer, and then it adds the Mesh Combiner script. We're going to want to click Create Multi-Material Mesh because we have multiple materials. If you have a single material, like I said, you just don't need to click that. It'll make a mesh with a single material. If you have multiple materials, use the multi-material mesh. And then since we created a backup, we do not need the combined children. Right now it's set to just deactivate them, but since we have a full backup, we can just destroy combined children, and that will delete all of those cubes that we no longer need. So now we're going to click Combine Meshes, and you see now we have a single thing called cubes, and we have all of our cubes as a single mesh. Wonderful. And you see the different materials all assigned to them. Also wonderful. You can still change and edit these how you please, which is quite nice. Now, in order to save this as a prefab, which you'll want to pretty much get used to doing, this is kind of broken, so this is a workaround, but this does work using this workflow. So we're going to go ahead and click Save Combined Mesh. What that does is it creates a folder inside your prefab folder named Combined Meshes, and you have a mesh called Cubes Asset. Wonderful. You'll see there's no colors on it, however. What the heck? Like I said, this is it's kind of a workaround. So once you have that in there, we can go back to the prefabs folder and just drag this into it. And now we have a proper working prefab of this. Wonderful. Too easy. And now you can just duplicate this, you can spawn it, you can do whatever you want. Let's go ahead and delete all these. Now with these guys, we can go to game. We can see stats here. Not too bad. Awesome. So having them all combined like that does reduce the draw calls. However, when you combine them with I should have mentioned this before. So pause, rewind, um, before you combine them if this is a situation for you. Um, if you combine them with receive shadows enabled, it does increase the poly count of the end mesh. Now, if you do it with receive shadows off, it does not increase the poly count. It will reduce the draw calls, but it will not increase the poly count. So depending on how you have your scene set up, depending on what these objects are, always try and change these settings beforehand, just depending on what it is. This is just a cube that emits light, so it doesn't need light probes. It does not need to reflect anything. It does not need to receive shadows. So that can be all turned off if whatever you're doing is definitely, just look at that. Take that into consideration, I guess I should say. So that's basically how you combine meshes into a single object with a prefab. We're going to go ahead and look at some texture compression real quick. Don't need that stuff anymore. Alright, so let's go ahead. I have just some examples. Let's go ahead and look at a beautiful flower. I think we're upside down here. There we go. Wonderful. Yes, so we have flower textures, and here's the texture that is assigned to it. So we do want to compress this, but since it's using an alpha cutout, we want to make sure we compress it in such a way that maintains that alpha cutout. And depending on how you compress it, which one of these you choose, kind of depend on whether or not it works at all. So we go ahead and click on PC, override for PC, and when you do this, it is just an override. It's not actually editing your original file, so this can always be disabled, and you will have the original still intact. So we want to reduce the max size. For PC worlds, 1024 is a good maximum. 2048 would be quite a bit and really unnecessary for most things. For Quest, 512 and even 256 or 128 can be used depending on the texture. But I'm just going to do 124. And we want to use crunched most of the time because crunched will not be deprecated in 2018. But for a good example, let's see here and apply. What's going on? We see it broken. It's not properly maintaining the transparency. We want to use crunched DT DXT5. Now let's go ahead and do it. And you can see it maintains the transparency. So wonderful. That is now compressed quite heavily. You see it's only taking up 78.2 kilobytes. And we still have our alpha transparency. Now if we disable it, you can see it jumps to 341.4 kilobytes. It's a lot more. So definitely want to get used to kind of checking that. Now as you gain more and more items in your scene, you use more and more textures, it does become harder and harder to ultimately keep track of everything. So there is a free asset that you can use. I've linked in the Discord called Resource Checker. You can download that right off of, I believe it is on GitHub. Excuse me. Once you import that out of the 7-zip folder, you just rename it to editor, whatever it comes with. I think it defaults as Unity Resource Checker or something like that. Just rename it to editor. And the resource checker is inside there. You can go up to Window and click on Resource Checker. That'll pop up a window and actually pops it out. And, oh my gosh. Pop out, thank you. It usually pops it out like this, but I like to add it over here or add it to wherever is kind of convenient for you. Then click Calculate. Once you click Calculate, it will show you all of the textures in your scene. We can see I'm using that one plant. And you can see it's 341,000 K, or 341 kilobytes. one material is using it, and we can just, or there's one material and one item is using that one material. So we can click go here, and it will select the object in your scene that is using it. If you click this, it will select it in your asset folder. So pretty easy way of checking. As you have more and more and more and more and more, this becomes really useful to seeing if you've missed a texture that isn't compressed, or if there's one texture that's way too large compared to the others. That can really hurt performance. And this also allows you to search materials used. I'm using 2 materials, the plant and the skybox. And the meshes, there's only one mesh. It consists of 8 verts. There's only one of them. Or you can click on that and it'll take you to the actual object. So this is really quite useful. No way of doing this otherwise. That's quite as simple. So nice little tool there. But that pretty much concludes everything I have to cover in this. So, yeah, any questions, just hit me up on Discord. Thanks.